It has become common knowledge over many years that Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, possesses an almost obsessive apprehension about threats to his life, resulting in his avoidance of most face-to-face encounters. It is also well documented that numerous secret bunkers and clandestine shelters are situated across the landscape of Russia. Thus, the chance that someone might attempt an attack on the Russian president's existence cannot be disregarded. Therefore, it comes as no surprise that Vladimir Putin undertakes every possible step to distance himself from the external world and ensure his personal security. This behavior was noticeably evident during the global pandemic, when Putin conducted meetings with official foreign delegations while maintaining a distance of 6 meters. Even today, the Russian head of state operates under a similar state of unease within this suspicious atmosphere. It is widely speculated that Putin utilizes lookalikes and maintains an array of secret sanctuaries. So, where exactly does the Russian leader conceal these secret locations, these bunkers and underground passage systems? In this presentation, we are going to investigate possible locations where Vladimir Putin might escape in response to an imminent threat, such as an assassination attempt. We will also explore in more detail the secret palaces from which Putin could make a hasty departure should he face potential legal repercussions following the conclusion of the current conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Before we proceed, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, activate notifications, and give us a like, enabling you to stay abreast of all our content. It has been confirmed that one of Vladimir Putin's hidden bunkers resides on the shores of the Black Sea, situated within the resort city of Sochi. The president's security personnel have previously confirmed the location of Putin's secret establishment on the Black Sea, valued at about $1 billion. Several security individuals inadvertently disclosed through the Strava application that they had visited various hidden facilities during the past few years. The personal palace in Sochi, resting on the edge of the Black Sea, was among those compromised sites. 4 members of the Federal Protection Service were found multiple times between the 19th of August and the 22nd of September in the years 2019, 2020, 2023, and 2024. Specifically, in the initial part of 2024, a bodyguard was observed jogging outside the main entrance of the palace over 3 consecutive days, as documented in a public report on the matter. One agent had documented a run of nearly 4 miles, commencing and terminating at a hangar within the Gelendzhik complex. Another security employee was recorded running along the access route that leads to the facility. Why was this particular Black Sea palace in Sochi built? And why does Putin occasionally run along those paths? From the days of the Tsars, Russian leaders have preferred the warmer climates, the palm trees, and a near-Mediterranean ambiance characteristic of the Black Sea area. Putin seems to fit perfectly into this tradition. During his approximately 25 years of office, he has often traveled to Sochi, widely known as Russia's most southern historic spa town. He typically would spend up to 5 weeks there every year, usually in the month of May and again in early autumn. In previous years, he had been accommodated at the luxurious presidential residence Bocharov Ruche, positioned on a cliff that overlooks the sea, used by past Soviet leaders like Nikita Khrushchev and Leonid Brezhnev as a place for relaxation. This site has also frequently been used by Putin for hosting state visitors and convening government councils. Photographic evidence of encounters with Western heads of state such as George W. Bush, Gerhard Schroeder, and Silvio Berlusconi on the idyllic pier of the complex remain fixed in diplomatic memory. Some time ago, Putin mirrored his Moscow working space inside the palace, so the public could never ascertain his physical location with absolute certainty. This begs the question as to why all of a sudden, Putin ceased to visit Sochi last year. The final officially documented visit was in March when he met the director of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and even then the meeting was not held at the Central Palace area, but rather in a separate nearby conference facility. Another piece of revealing information is that the main palace, Bocharov Ruche, the official presidential residence, appears to no longer exist. It seems to have vanished. This can easily be verified by studying maps. Merely 1 year ago, the structure's red-colored roof and landscaped park were visible, but now there is a large pit covering nearly 1 hectare. The satellite images utilized by the map services are dated May 2024, so the demolition must have taken place prior to that time. Lower resolution images from the European Sentinel satellite indicate that this destruction most likely occurred around February or March. Remarkably, this is only now coming to light, underscoring how capable Putin's regime is at hiding information and how subdued the country's media and its population have become. Still, it's possible that the demolition was not entirely hidden from those local observers, given the area is surrounded by very tall fences. The Putin administration, meanwhile, has always remained secretive about its palaces. One magnificent property, close to Gelendzhik, approximately 150 kilometers from Sochi along the Black Sea, became a point of interest some time ago. It was revealed because of a documentary made by a prominent Russian opposition personality. In past years, it has been revealed that Putin often spends some time at the luxury presidential retreat in Valdai, north of Moscow. However, Sochi is not just another covert retreat. It is a designated government property where Putin, until recently, welcomed foreign dignitaries in official ceremonies. This makes it seem curious that the regime feels no pressure to explain the dismantling of the complex. Some foreign press outlets have suggested a possible explanation that might have embarrassed Putin. They have pointed out that Sochi may no longer be considered secure enough for the president, particularly given that, in the previous year, September 2023, Ukrainian long-range drones reached the city for the first time, traveling roughly 600 kilometers to carry out an assault. One fuel tank was engulfed in flames, and within a matter of days, the Sochi airport's helipad suffered an attack. From that autumn onward, there have been no recorded visits by Putin to his much-loved city, with only one noted incident. Defense analysts and political authorities speculate that Putin is troubled by Ukrainian aerial strikes and no longer considers Sochi to be a safe location. This idea is not far-fetched, given Putin's well-documented anxiety concerning his own personal security. However, this hypothesis remains unconfirmed. Also, this concept disagrees with the observation that Putin had already decreased his trips to Sochi prior to the fall of 2023. Observers say that in 2023, Putin did not even take his regular extended vacation on the Black Sea during the month of May. Certain independent Russian media outlets claimed that he visited during that period to mark the birth date of his one-time rumored companion, Alina Kabaeva, with whom he supposedly shares several children. If concerns about his safety drove the reduction in visits in 2023, then this would imply that the Kremlin acknowledged the dangers of Ukrainian drone attacks many months in advance. Nonetheless, the question remains as to why Putin not only stayed away from Sochi, but had his entire Black Sea establishment bulldozed. Fears of drone attacks alone may not be enough to explain such action. Indeed, that same estate underwent a significant renovation 10 years prior. Subsequently, a new port facility was added, and, in 2017, a private rail station seemed to appear close to the property, as has been revealed by aerial imagery. This upgrade would have allowed Putin to travel by armored railway from Moscow to his southern residence, thereby avoiding the more risky air travel in areas close to conflict zones. Thus, until the very recent past, there was nothing to suggest the Kremlin's leader was tired of the area. One possibility is that Putin has not completely abandoned Sochi. Perhaps he decided to demolish the official residence, not because he was afraid of drones, but so he could erect something even more impressive. This scenario remains unconfirmed so far, but a recent satellite image from September of 2024 indicates what seems to be ongoing construction on that vacant lot. Numerous construction vehicles are visible, implying that a brand new, hidden complex may be being constructed at Sochi. Besides Sochi, Putin also possesses secret mansions elsewhere. One undisclosed luxury complex close to Russia's border with Finland reportedly includes a trout farm, helipads, and even a waterfall carved out of a national park. This is according to the Dossier Center, an investigative journalism enterprise that is run from London by Russian dissidents. The heavily fortified site is within the Karelia region of northern Russia, fewer than 20 miles from Finland, the newest member of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Reports reveal that the complex also includes yacht docks, multiple residences, plus farmland that utilizes a specialized marble technique for raising cattle. Drone footage of the estate reveals 3 structures along the edge of Lake Ladoga. The dossier center asserts that an area of approximately 4 square kilometers, twice the size of Monaco, has been closed off to the public to ensure Putin's privacy. Additionally, there is mention of a 4-meter-tall waterfall that, theoretically, visitors to the Ladoga Skerries National Park could approach, but a private gazebo has been placed right next to the waterfall on the presidential estate, blocking outside visitors from that vantage point. Shots of this area near the Finnish border include an artificial mound, presumably erected in the last 2 years. Its function remains unknown, but it may house a Panzer air defense system. Anti-aircraft units have appeared at other presidential properties since the Ukraine incursion began in 2022. The property itself contains 3 residences referred to as the Fisherman's Cottage, the Barn, and the Garden House. Security measures such as motion sensors, barbed wire, and cameras protect the premises from intruders. Local residents state that Putin visits there around once per year after praying at the nearby Valam Monastery. The Kremlin Guard Service oversees security, with the adjacent islands being sealed off while he is present. The dossier center is funded by Mikhail Khodorkovsky, a former oligarch in Russia who served around 10 years in prison for revealing high-level corruption. Putin released him before the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics, and Khodorkovsky currently resides in the United Kingdom. The construction of the secret estate apparently received funding from Yuri Kovalchuk, an entrepreneur often described as Putin's personal banker. Official documents reveal that Roman Abramovich, the former owner of Chelsea Football Club, controls a nearby mansion. Exposing this lavish hideaway so close to Finland evidently involves well-known names. All the while, the Kremlin maintains that Putin's sole property is a 77-square-meter apartment, plus an 18-square-meter garage in St. Petersburg. In addition to that major hideaway, the Russian leader is said to possess 3 cars, 2 from the 1960s, plus a Soviet-built ski camping trailer. The Kremlin also states that his 3rd car is a 2009 Lada Niva. Supposedly, Putin's annual salary is near $90,000. However, critics of the administration argue that Putin, who has held power for almost a quarter of a century, is among the wealthiest people in the world. They assert that his bank accounts considerably exceed the alleged $490,000. Putin's secret bunkers, his underground complexes, and his enormous accumulation of wealth likely come from a fear of losing his grasp on power. But just how likely is that eventuality, and who might Putin see as a possible successor? He may have been preparing for that the moment he took office. Vladimir Putin assumed power in 2000, stepping in for Boris Yeltsin, who was in failing health following the Second Chechen War that Putin helped to wage. This pivotal era of Russia's history took shape at that point. Once in power, Putin took steps that would eventually allow him to orchestrate something like the Ukraine invasion. The Russian president also rewrote the constitution to eliminate competitors and maintain his grip on authority. In the past, analysts deemed it very unlikely that he would voluntarily give up leadership. Yet now that possibility is no longer negligible. If Putin acknowledges that he is no longer able to sustain his authority, many Kremlin watchers see Nikolai Patrushev as his most probable successor. Formerly the head of the FSB, and now the Secretary of the Security Council, Patrushev shares Putin's worldview, which is highly significant. Therefore, Russia might once again be governed by a former spy. Nikolai Patrushev is thought to maintain a stance deeply suspicious of the West, especially the United States. In a Security Council meeting just days before troops entered Ukraine in February, Patrushev alleged that Washington wanted the Russian Federation to collapse. This echoed a common narrative of confrontation. Patrushev earlier accused former U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright of stating that Siberia and the Far East did not belong to Russia. There was no evidence to support that claim, suggesting it might have derived from a top-secret project in which Russian intelligence hired telepaths to scan Western officials' minds. Because Putin spends most of his time in seclusion, Patrushev has assumed a more active role, including a trip to China, as anxiety regarding the conflict grows. But he is approximately 73 years old, so if he were to become president, he might only serve in a transitional capacity. Another candidate to replace Putin shares a similar hostility towards the West. If there is anyone Putin trusts, it is Dmitry Medvedev. Putin essentially handed the presidency to his old colleague from St. Petersburg in 2008 by switching their roles. Putin kept his personal control while observing constitutional term limits that were in place at the time. Medvedev filled the presidency, but was considered to be moderately reform-friendly. At the end of his 4-year tenure, Medvedev simply allowed Putin to reclaim power. Medvedev remained prime minister for another 8 years before becoming deputy head of the Security Council in 2020. He answers directly to Putin, once again. But the war in Ukraine has not been good for Medvedev. By trying to portray himself as a nuclear warmonger in order to undo his image of being a gentler version of Putin, Medvedev triggered widespread ridicule amongst Telegram users. Though he is still young enough to preside over Russia again, his entire career is inextricably linked to Putin's. Alexei Dumin is another figure who could potentially seize leadership from Putin. Dumin supposedly rescued Putin from a bear that approached a mountain bunker at night by emptying his revolver's magazine near the creature's feet. Dumin is known in Russia for his unwavering loyalty, plus a humane aspect that might be an ideal combination for Putin's succession, permitting the older statesman a calm retirement and immunity from war crime prosecution at The Hague, or perhaps the opposite. Dumin served as a Special Forces commander in 2014 during the incursion into Crimea. 2 years later, Putin named him governor of the Tula region. Dumin is rumored to be a particular favorite of Putin, but that distinction might render him an easy target in the event of a Kremlin power struggle. Dmitry Patrushev is yet another name floated for stepping in after Putin. In 2000, when Nikolai Patrushev took over the FSB, he labeled the intelligence elite as the new nobility. A generation later, his son, Dmitry Patrushev, became what many call a prince, a credible candidate for the top job. Dmitry served as the Minister of Agriculture from 2018 onward, following earlier stints at the FSB, Academy, and heading the state-run Russian Agricultural Bank. Even though the chance may be small, a prince-style president could alleviate anxieties that a failing Russia and Ukraine might carry out a desperate nuclear escalation. A hereditary-style figure, by definition, might have a greater instinct for self-preservation than a frantic dictator hidden underground. B. Alternative scenario is that Russia's crisis intensifies, with Patrushev ignoring Putin's preferences. Regardless of the discussions about managed successions, the record reveals that Kremlin insiders are prone to forging their own paths. Lenin and Stalin passed away due to natural causes, as did Brezhnev and the 2 Soviet leaders after him, though they followed soon after. The last time a Russian head of state was assassinated was Tsar Alexander II in 1881. But there is historical precedent for the forcible removal of leaders from power. Putin is fully aware of this legacy and remains wary of successors who might pose a threat. Faced with imminent risk, if it becomes clear that a transition in Russia is unavoidable, the Russian leader may first relocate to the secret bunkers we have detailed. We might even witness a scenario in which Putin flees Russia entirely, taking all his wealth with him. Thank you for choosing us. Okay, there have been a lot of interesting developments across the globe recently, and today we are going to take a deeper look at some of them. We'll be diving into the locations where Vladimir Putin might flee in case of danger, discussing his secret palaces, and the possible candidates who might take his place. If you're enjoying this kind of content and want to stay up to date with all the latest news, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and turn on notifications. Your support is essential for our channel's growth, so please don't forget to subscribe. Also, let us know in the comments section where you're tuning in from. It's great to see where our community is located. Make sure to watch until the end, as we'll be drawing some conclusions and summarizing our findings at the conclusion of this video. The sheer number of secret shelters and underground facilities across Russia is quite remarkable. And it's no secret that President Putin has a deep fear for his own personal safety. It's believed that he goes to extreme measures to protect himself from any potential threat. And this was even more apparent during the pandemic, when he held meetings with foreign officials at a great distance. This paranoia has led to the construction of numerous bunkers and secret locations. So, where exactly are these locations, and what are their purposes? Today, we'll look into this mystery and consider why these places are necessary for a man in his position. There has been much talk of Putin's safety, and all this secrecy suggests something more significant is taking place behind the scenes. Putin's penchant for secrecy is not new. It's a long-standing tradition among Russian leaders. The country's history has many examples of secretive behavior, and Putin's actions fit right into that pattern. The vast network of secret locations, bunkers, and palaces across the country are not just a random endeavor. They are a deliberate strategy to ensure his survival and the longevity of his control. This extensive safety system further emphasizes his deep level of distrust. By carefully analyzing each of these sites and their purposes, we gain a valuable insight into the mindset of Putin. It also gives us a view of the steps he is taking to guarantee that he maintains his position of authority, even in the face of significant challenges. One particularly interesting aspect of this situation is the revelation that Putin's personal palaces are not just places of leisure, but also strategic locations, specifically built with security in mind. For example, the palace on the Black Sea in Sochi, previously considered a personal favorite, has been surrounded with a web of mystery. The fact that this luxurious residence has been the site of many official meetings and diplomatic encounters suggests it has a more significant role than a simple vacation home. It's also now a site of mystery and demolition. This adds to the speculation and the theories. The questions are, why was the decision made to dismantle a place that was not only a symbol of power, but also a strategic and secure location? The answers at this moment are largely speculation and educated guesses. The demolition of the Sochi Palace is just one puzzle piece, adding to the complexity of the whole picture of Putin's security measures. What was once considered to be a safe haven, a symbol of his power, has now turned into a pile of rubble. This unusual action raises some crucial questions and sparks a great deal of speculation. Why demolish it unless it was no longer safe, or the president had a new purpose for that space? These are the very questions that intrigue experts and observers, offering us a window into the president's thought process and the changes that are going on behind the scenes. This series of events also indicates a shift in strategy in Putin's life, raising some serious questions about the stability of his regime. The timing of the Sochi Palace's demolition is particularly concerning. Coinciding with the increase of Ukrainian drone attacks suggests that Putin may have lost faith in the security of that location. The ability of Ukrainian drones to reach deep inside Russia, specifically hitting targets close to Sochi, means that it may not be the safe haven it once was. The fear of these attacks has no doubt impacted the mindset of Putin, leading to the dismantling of this once cherished location. It's not just a physical move, it's also a symbolic indication of his worry regarding his own personal safety. This development means that Putin is not only taking steps to stay alive, but also demonstrating his anxiety for all to see. The existence of other hidden properties near the Finnish border indicates that Putin has a network of strategic backup plans. These facilities, each of them carefully concealed, emphasize the extent of Putin's paranoia and his effort to maintain power. These hideouts are not just private residences, they're strategic outposts designed to ensure his continued safety and authority. The intricate construction of these areas, combined with their state-of-the-art security systems, reflects the lengths Putin is going to in order to protect his position. The attention to detail in these various properties shows the level of preparedness that Putin is trying to achieve. These luxury properties are far from a secret for those in the know. The names associated with some of these properties reveal how powerful the people in Putin's circle actually are. By utilizing the names of his long-term supporters, we can see how the power of these properties is concentrated and spread throughout Putin's inner circle. These connections demonstrate a system of power that is more robust than it is readily apparent. The use of oligarchs and business leaders for construction emphasizes the level of influence and corruption that is present. This system indicates not only a way to maintain the safety of the president, but also the stability of the entire regime. Putin's alleged wealth and the vast network of secret locations suggest that he understands the threat to his authority and power. The money that has been channeled into these projects is far more than just private property. It's an investment in his personal protection. The money that has been funneled into these facilities shows the resources that are being used to protect the leader and maintain his status. This level of investment is a clear indication of how much power is at stake. These enormous sums, when coupled with the level of secrecy, paint a picture of a leader who is paranoid and constantly preparing for the worst-case scenarios. Considering that Putin's reign has lasted for nearly a quarter of a century, it's not unreasonable to imagine that the discussion of succession is now unavoidable. The choice of who will replace him is of great importance, not just for Russia, but for the wider world. Several names have been discussed, each with their own set of strengths and weaknesses. The choice will depend on various factors, including the level of stability that will be present at the time of his departure. The decision of his successor may determine the future of the country and will also have an effect on global politics. It is a complicated issue that will be closely monitored in the months ahead. The idea of Nikolai Patrushev as a potential successor is very relevant given his experience and long-term dedication to Putin. Sharing the leader's worldview makes him a strong possibility for many inside the Kremlin. If he were to take power, it would mean a continuation of the current policies. This continuity could be good for stability, but it would also suggest a possible continuation of the current political climate. The selection of Patrushev suggests a deep desire for stability and for policies that are similar to those of Putin. Patrushev's strong views and his background in intelligence make him an individual that could maintain the present power structure. Dmitry Medvedev's past role as a president of Russia suggests he may be someone that could be chosen to take on that role once again. His strong historical ties to Putin, as well as his previous presidency, indicate the trust that is placed in him. However, his recent public image and his actions may lessen his value as a suitable successor. The use of nuclear threats has not been well received by the public. This could limit his potential within the ruling circle. His past history and his future goals will be scrutinized as we go forward. The emergence of Alexei Dyumin as a possible successor is also of great significance because of his unusual history with Putin. He has a history of loyalty and courage. That type of individual may be what Putin is looking for at this time. His role within the military and as a regional governor gives him experience and makes him a contender in the succession race. The fact that he may be a favorite of Putin's may be important for some within the Kremlin. Dyumin will be someone that will be closely watched in the coming months, as he may become a very important player in the political landscape. The emergence of Dmitry Patrushev's son as a possible successor suggests the possible emergence of a hereditary leadership system. This type of system may bring stability while also raising some important questions about the long-term future of Russia's political system. The rise of Dmitry Patrushev as a leader may be an option for some who want to avoid change, but also may represent a long-term shift in the country's power structure. The question remains, will this become a system of dynasty within the Russian government? Only time will tell. Regardless of who is chosen as Putin's successor, one thing is very clear. Russia is entering a period of great change. The old regime may be changing, and the coming months will determine what direction that change will take. The future of Russia is dependent upon the transition of power and the people involved. The coming months will be of great interest as the world looks on to see who will take control and how they will do it. The current stability and future trajectory of the country depends on this selection. The legacy of previous Russian leaders shows a mix of natural deaths, assassinations, and removals from power. The history of Russia shows a chaotic landscape, and, when coupled with Putin's anxiety, shows a volatile situation in the coming months. The legacy of violence and political intrigue will cause people to watch very closely as events unfold in the future. Putin's actions and the reaction of those in his circle will determine the direction of Russia in the coming years. The possibility of a change in leadership has brought about a very turbulent time in Russian history. The current state of affairs in Russia is an exciting story, with many layers of secrecy, paranoia, and hidden agendas. Putin's life and his actions give us a glimpse into the political turmoil and the power struggles happening behind the scenes. The demolition of the palace in Sochi, the existence of secret bunkers and luxury properties, the uncertainty surrounding his successor, each reveal a critical aspect of Putin's life and his management of Russian power. The implications are great, and it will be something that the world will be watching closely. The possibility that Putin may try to flee the country with his wealth shows a complete level of desperation. The possibility of such a scenario, although extreme, shows the instability of the current climate. The existence of these hidden locations and the enormous accumulation of wealth implies that Putin is anticipating a moment when he may need to leave. These actions indicate a level of desperation that is beyond the ordinary. The possibility of such a scenario occurring may indicate the end of the Putin era and the end of the Russian system as we know it. We've explored a great deal of information here today. It is now time to tie up some of our discoveries, so let's briefly recap what we've discussed.